Welcome to Movie and a Beer, everybody. This is Dan bringing us in, and we have a great set of friends and co-hosts hanging out with us tonight to talk about an interesting sci-fi film.
One of a kind film, one of a kind. Thanks for joining us, dear listener. This is Aaron. I'm your recycling expert.
We're going to get into the one of a kind part because I talked to Brian about this while we were watching. But I'm Blake 5. The previous 4 Blakes just were not the snuff for the podcast.
And this is Brian. I'm your 3D printing expert.
Oh, you have a 3D printer, so you can say that.
Legally, he can say that.
Legally, he can say that. So the film that we watched was called Mickey 17.
Yes. It is. Dan's asking because Aaron can't remember the name of this movie.
I was waiting for Aaron to chime in and be like, what was it? What this?
Yeah, Marnie 24.
You said it
I got the 17 right every single time. But I couldn't remember if it was, Marley 17 or, Masha, Mork 17, Mindy 17. I went through, I think, 6 different, maybe 16 different iterations before I watched the movie, and then I could remember Mickey 17 as the name.
Are you a disposable employee?
I'm certainly not.
I mean, you work for a company, you kind of are.
No,
we all are. That's why companies are terrible, and you should...
I didn't sign an expendable agreement. I signed a non-disclosure
agreement. Do you want to travel to the ice world Niflheim?
Niflheim. So Niflheim has, dear listeners,
this is a newer movie.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's back up. Let's talk about the film first.
Let's give a brief synopsis of the film and then talk about some tasty beers we had with the film.
Yeah,
Brian, you could run a podcast.
I could.
But
I choose not to.
At least somebody's paying attention. Yeah, so we watched Mickey 17, which is a fairly new film with Robert Pattinson, and we decided to stop by Beermongers earlier this evening before we watched and picked out 3 different beers. Now, not all of us had all 3, and that's cool because not everybody needs to drink that much. And
not everyone was there at lunch either. Some of us had to work.
Yeah, not everybody was there to participate, and that's okay. So
like 3 had to work.
Yeah, so we had 3 different...
What is it, severance?
Yeah, we had 3 different beers. We had one to celebrate Cinco de Mayo because that is very close to where we are recording. And
you know our production cycle time.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, also just listen to this every year on Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, there you go.
And it was also kind of a clone of...
it's a clone of like Corona. It's very Mexican lagery, and it was by Recluse Brewing. So we'll talk about that later. And then I actually thought it was more Dos Equis than Corona, but we'll talk about that in a bit. And then the second one we had was Star Sender's Hazy IPA from Ruse Brewing, another R word, but that has nothing to do with the fact that we watched a film called Mickey.
Well, did you do Starfinder because they're in space?
Yes, because the can art looked very spacey, and it's a hazy IPA, and it actually was really good. We'll talk about that later too. But then the third one, which some of us had, which was Super Nebula, which is in space.
I had that. It was great.
It was really good.
A little teaser for later in the episode.
Yeah, it was an Imperial barrel-aged stout with coca nibs from Block 15, and we'll totally talk about that in a minute or 5. I think the guys are going to actually pour themselves a little taste of it so that they can participate in that conversation later.
I was looking for water, but I found this instead.
The water's way over there. I messed up.
Mickey 17 is directed by someone who... Bong Joon-ho, who's
famous for Parasite,
and a number of other movies. Snowpiercer. He's made some amazing films. We actually did Okja, which we haven't done on the pod.
So I noticed the direction at some time because there would be a scene, particularly if it's like overhead looking down, where it would hold. And then as the action of the scene took place, like it would pan a little bit in a subtle way. Like I noticed a lot of that kind of activity.
Good art direction and
really well done.
Yeah, really well. I mean, the film is cinematically very encapsulated, and it's a Hollywood film. It's a sci-fi Hollywood film. This is not a foreign film. This is very much...
Let's lay out the brief synopsis.
The synopsis is you have a main character who made a bad deal on Earth, and in order to escape and get away from the debt that he owes because he's going to die, he decides to go to space and signs a contract to go to space.
Running away from bad decisions and their consequences.
And he has no skills, so the only way to pay his way to colonize space is to sign a contract to allowing himself to be an expendable.
A rejuvenating guinea pig.
Yes, basically.
Yeah. For every science thing they have to figure out, because space is scary.
But also every dangerous job that might melt your skin and irradiate you and kill you.
Yes.
And they back up his memory and his emotions and his...
Just personality over...
Personhood.
Sort of.
into a hard drive, and then they 3D print his body every time he dies.
Over and over.
And then reinsert his memories and personhood into that body.
And sometimes not always successfully.
So I want to ask, this movie's new-ish enough? Do we want to get into too much of the story later?
2025, and we should avoid spoilers.
Okay.
I think we're
I think we should hold off there then, because we pretty much covered the trailer. There's a lot in this movie that wasn't in the trailer that had me like, this movie's incredible. I wasn't really that into watching this before. Now I'm stoked.
Wait, you weren't into watching it, and then you watched it, and then you were into watching it?
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
That happens when you're cloned.
Sorry, I'm Blake 8 now. He loves this stuff.
When you do carbon copies of yourself, and this is a trope that's been in a lot of sci-fi films, you run the risk of it not always working the way it should because weird things happen, science, whatever.
Spoilers, Dan.
And so, I mean, that's any TV show, movie, or anything sci-fi where you clone people
Do you
and
have 3
shape
examples?
things.
One Star Trek, you get a goatee.
Correct.
Oh, wait, was that the William Riker thing? Like, wait, wasn't it?
No. All the bad versions of Star Trek people had goatees.
Yes.
That explains the 90s.
I was telling. Well, what's weird is I'm a really sweet person, but I have a goatee.
That explains Blake 9.
Explain.
Here we go.
I have this gun. I couldn't think of it.
Okay, so you're right. There's a trope where sometimes a clone can degrade, like a bad photocopy, right?
Especially if they're all crazy to start with. And
he wasn't really crazy, just kind of a loser.
But the guy who invented the technology was. Mm-hmm. He's like, I want to clone myself so I can do evil stuff. And that's the whole fear.
I'm sure. Oh,
the scientist.
It's
described in the movie.
The first scientist was a serial killer.
Oh, that was the first.
Oh, spoiler!
Psychopath.
Spoiler.
But he really has nothing to do with the
film. The main story doesn't have it. It doesn't have any impact on that.
I want to touch on really, really, really quick.
Yeah.
I watched Sinners yesterday. Incredible. Go see it. It's so good. And the two of the main characters are Michael B. Jordan playing twins. This movie has Robert Pattinson playing multiple versions of himself. It feels like the way that the multiverse was a big thing in Hollywood. When did Everything Everywhere All at Once come out? Around then.
2022?
Yeah.
3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It feels like cloning yourself is now like a thing, or just having multiple people play the same person feels like a thing in Hollywood right now.
Altered Carbon
trend
had this same thing too, where you had a sleeve that was your physical body, and then you had like your personhood, which was enhanced basically in like a SIM card that plugged into the back of your neck.
Interesting. That's cool.
And if you got blown up, you're fine if your SIM card survives. If your SIM card gets jacked up or shot, you're dead forever.
Dead forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Versus all the TV shows where it's like we have one baby and we cloned it 16 times and we put it all around the world and it had to figure out who it was.
Wasn't there a Star Wars thing, Attack of the Clones?
Oh, there's all kinds of clone stuff
There's a
going
movie
on. Like
and also a successful cartoon series.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of that out there. So cloning
anyway.
is not an unfamiliar and untreaded territory.
Well, I like how they tackled it. Well, it's not really cloning, is it?
It's not, but it does ask some questions of like if you have an innie and an outie and your spouse decides they like the other version better, what happens?
Then they have to hang out at work.
They have to
work with you, I guess.
Try and make it work.
I don't know, man. They're separate. I haven't watched season 2 though, so I'm still pretty behind.
Oh well, no spoilers for Severance.
I appreciate you, sir.
Yeah.
All right, so this film,
thank God.
Let's get back on track.
I was trying to do it, and I lost my train of
is
thought.
examining some familiar territory for the director.
Yeah.
It at least starts as a film examining class.
Right.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Right. Someone
bread and butter for old Bong
who
Joon-ho.
is so poor that the only way he can pay his way is to be an expendable.
Or sacrifice his own body.
Sacrifice his own body in service to the rich politician who is beholden to no one and is entitled and privileged to do whatever he wants.
And frankly, so out of touch because of that privilege and entitlement. He and his spouse are massively out of touch in a way that feels offensive and
reckless
comical.
It's comical almost.
Which I'll tell you, I don't know if they're in the trailer. Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette do such a great job of being the just absolute worst examples of the upper crust. treating everyone else like
right. They're
really
the out of touch leaders of the space colonization.
Most of their scenes got pretty good laughs out of at least one of us.
Yeah.
God, she's my age. That makes me feel like, wow.
Well, you're not an Aussie. It's fine.
I know, but yeah, she was her debut was like Sixth Sense. Like she'd been around a while, but like her breakthrough in Hollywood, the Sixth Sense. She was the mom.
The show United States of Terra, very good.
Yeah.
Dear listener, 3 minutes into this film, there was a moment that made us all gasp.
Yes.
It was the initial representation of cloning.
Yeah.
And so you start out from this point where you are already opposed to the ethical dilemma that this film presents.
Yes.
And I'm going to leave it there without spoiling anything else.
I don't remember what that first gasp was. There were several.
Well, we gasped a lot when they were so nonchalant to the first 3D printing we saw.
Yes, I do remember that now. Yeah.
The value of human life was devalued so much.
Yeah.
Right.
And that presents our ethical dilemma within 3 minutes of the start of the film.
I mostly think of the montage where they kept not having the GD table just there.
Yeah. They're like,
come on.
Yeah, you need to just, when you print them out.
I opened the tray of my paper printer. Come on.
All right. The Mickey 17, the Mickeys became so expendable and so valueless that they were just a thing, not a human anymore. And that, I would say that's the central thesis of the whole film.
I agree.
So what does the brick represent?
Your Plex.
So his memories are put into a brick, and the brick is then added for.
Which I kind of part of me wants them to have explained how it operated, and part of me is glad they didn't, because all they say is, "Yeah, we're using a brick now. It's way better than the other thing," and they just plug it in. They just leave it there.
I think it's meant like it has this exterior that really, listener, it does look like a red,
it's a real brick.
It looks like a deteriorated brick. Yeah.
And I think maybe part of that is meant that it's supposed to be enduring. It's supposed to be protected.
I like
and it's supposed to be strong. However, there's limits to that because you can anything that's data.
Relatively porous material too.
Well, it is porous. Well, kind of like actual memory. Human memory is porous. Changes over time. Human memory is susceptible to suggestion and change. That's why eyewitness accounts for crimes actually are unreliable. Unless they're corroborated by like 3 or more people, because you can easily suggest that the perpetrator had a very different appearance than what they actually did. Anytime you act, I should have been the psychology expert. Anytime you access a memory, you are calling it up, and your current circumstances will inflect and kind of change the emotional tenor of that memory. It also changes the tenor that what you're feeling in the moment. If you have a happy memory, that's why you feel happy. If you have a terrifying memory, that's why you feel terrified.
Yeah.
But you alter that memory a little bit when you remember it.
So are thought and experience and memory interchangeable?
That makes a lot of sense.
Like, because memories, when you have them, you experience the memory in your mind.
Yep.
And so thought and experience, because that's all the same as memory, is that interchangeable? I'm like, so if I remember I was somewhere and I remember how I reacted, I'm physically going to react to that because I'm emotionally attached to that. So we're going to start digressing into some stuff that you may not care about, listener, but it's interesting to think about because they talk a lot about memory and emotion, because the one Mickey 18 calls Mickey 17 weak because he keeps going back to it.
Well, and we have in the film examples of
smell, memories of smell.
Several different Mickeys have different personalities.
Yes.
And I guess the question is what makes us us, and it's our memories
and hot dogs.
But each new clone, they have the new memory of their death.
Yeah,
that they're building their new personality on.
And and
I think that's why they change.
Yes,
rather than the one in the lab.
There can be mistakes that would alter that, but also too, I think it's true. What we are a sum of our memories and experiences, including sometimes imagined experiences. If you've got anxiety, that's sort of an aversion to a future that you're trying to avoid, and that's a real experience that alters you too.
And certain things will seem like a much larger threat than they actually are because you just want to avoid the thing. But I want to jump back on what Brian was talking about with the Mickeys. We mentioned 17 and 18. Since each one got up to the point of death, did they say in the movie that they remember up to the point of death?
Yeah.
Because everyone keeps asking about it.
They remember all the previous
18
deaths.
doesn't remember a death. He just remembers like being knocked out. And so his much more brash bravado attitude might be informed by, I can't die.
I thought he said that was a once a week download. That
I couldn't remember where that was.
He remembers the death of 16, 15, 14, 13.
Yeah.
He just doesn't remember the death of 17.
Because 17 didn't.
Because 17 didn't. I mean,
yeah.
The technology is a little wishy-washy on how it works.
It's that thing I love and am equally frustrated by in sci-fi when they don't explain a thing. Because you shouldn't. Don't handhold me. Let me think about it, because we get to have this discussion. Yeah. But also, I kind of want to know how it works. I want to get in there and figure it out.
I mean, so classic Star Trek: The Next Generation, and when they were script writing, they would actually
fans call it TNG.
TNG, come on, man. Star Trek TNG is
good lord.
Get your S together.
When they were writing those scripts, sometimes they would just leave lines blank for insert science gobbly here. And so then they would say, "Oh yes, the tachyon array is."
Their tech guru would fill it in.
I love that.
And I remember that. I remember that. Yeah. They had to have somebody who knew the history and could call back and do it accurately, because there is a certain amount of canon and consistency across how they handled those kinds of conversations.
But you also needed an astrophysicist. Correct. You needed somebody to do the canon.
Futurama had some of those. They always joked that they were the most overeducated comedy writers room, and they were creating a formula to make a joke work in a show.
Right.
So I'm with you on they should have had an astrophysicist.
Does Mickey 17 succeed in creating believable scientific tech?
I think it does.
Believable
and they said it's way forward and before its time, because this movie takes place in 2057.
He does say
20 years in the future.
And he does say he does use the phrase before his time. It is.
We weren't ready for it.
All right, so I'm gonna put my Neil deGrasse Tyson hat on and be like,
real quick, pick a different guy in the future. He sucks now. Bill Nye rips.
So we will channel our inner Bill Nye and figure out what shielding did they use for that gigantic spaceship out in space, where they put him out of the spaceship to figure out the radiation.
Oh, probably
impacts.
2 feet of lead.
I don't know, but something, because I'm like, what the hell?
How did they get off the Earth?
Yeah, well, they built it in space.
Science. And I'm waving my hands a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go. And I'm just there's as a science nerd and as the science person at the table more than the other guys, that I would hope so.
Scientist is literally part of my job title.
I know. I'm trying not to go there.
Now that Ken is here, he's also partially a scientist.
Right. Yes.
I'm a creative nerd.
There you go. Me too. Here we are.
Blake Levin's also a creative person.
I want to say that they treated it just like all the other movies, where they don't explain everything. You don't have to. You make some assumptions.
Well, and they probably can't, because
they don't know.
Fantastical.
Yeah, I like that, though. It makes it seem more real, rather than sidebar, here's how this technology works. Oh, sidebar, here's how this other technology works. Sidebar, here's
there's good ways to do that, and some sci-fi movies do, but it's such a thin line, because you can over-explain and just drag down the story.
Is the emphasis on the technology, or is the emphasis on the characters and their story?
Oh, the characters in the story.
Yeah.
That's why I love Bong Joon-ho movies.
And I would say the emphasis is more on chewing on ethical dilemmas.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
But they use science in a really effective way, just as he does in a social setting in his previous movies. He uses science really effectively here, where it's like, oh, we don't want you to come back inside. We're going to leave you outside and count the amount of time it takes for these things to happen to you. And we're going to leave the mic open so we can hear you. And we're going to ask you these questions.
Asking, hey, at what point do you feel your skin burning? Which I shuddered. That's upsetting.
So I was going to say, I've read somewhere that says that the best sci-fi, and maybe not all sci-fi, but the best sci-fi uses the chance to ask kind of ethical questions about how we would respond with potential future technologies or potential changes, and it creates this sort of thought experiment to say, well, does human life mean something different if you can reconstitute it with a 3D printer? Is it less precious somehow?
That's why I was so hooked on Black Mirror for a long time. Because it was like an updated Twilight Zone, where every episode was, well, if we have this tech, what if we did a little bit more and then use it to make everyone's lives worse because that's what's going to happen. And
It
so
is.
I love this question of,
like, does Mickey 17 do this? Like, does it ask, like, what question do you think it asks?
what makes a person a person?
Yeah, seriously. And they actually,
What value is a human life?
Right.
I mean, that is better than mine. Dang
well,
it.
during one of the
All right,
quote-unquote
get out of here, Blake
Senate
11.
hearings,
Blake 12's here.
yeah, the Senate hearings where they were talking about the cloning technology and the 3D printing, and then how many people can you have? But there's only one soul. And they keep talking about the corporation as a church.
Oh no! And I love that he the leader kept saying someone would say the church, and he'd go company.
Like, it's a company. God. No, it's a church. No, it's a company. No, it's a church. All right, so
real convenient way to avoid taxes, I guess.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
It's too real. It's too real.
All right, so
one of my primary criticisms of this film is that I think it asked too many questions to chew on. Because we're
that's fair.
We are in one sense talking about what is personhood, but then we're also lampooning and critiquing politics.
Yep.
And
red hats,
power dynamics,
class.
Yep. And then about 2/3 of the way through, we kind of throw all that away and start talking about, okay, what is an effective negotiation?
Yeah,
first contact,
and what is peacemaking and first contact?
Oh my God, it does really just
it drops kind of their ethical questions about 2/3 of the way through, and this is my only criticism of this film is that what was really an interesting ethical question
got dropped. And they focused on, well, okay, here's our situation. We need to fix the situation or we're all going to die. So I think from a storytelling standpoint, they did what they needed to do. I agree. Yeah. They totally abandoned this great conversation because there were other things. And then once it was resolved, they didn't ever go back to it.
I'm curious how much of that's from the original book and how much of that is the director changing up what finds more interesting.
Yeah, so this is based off a novel called Mickey 7, which I don't have any trivia or anything in front of me.
I do. Bong Joon-ho said he made Mickey 17 because he wanted to kill Mickey 10 more times. This is the same man who, when Harvey Fierstein, go to hell, was telling him, why do you have you can't have the fish cutting open scene in a Snowpiercer? And the director told him, well, no, my father was a fisherman. This is really important to me. It's like a symbolic thing about it. And then when the movie aired, he's like, nah, I just want to have the fish cutting scene. I don't give a shit. My dad wasn't a fisher. What are you talking about? So that's what won me over because he's such a wonderful person. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, so from a filmmaking standpoint, I had no problems with there's no robots punching robots. There's special effects. Obviously, there's a lot.
Oh, Dan, they bred those monsters.
The monsters.
They're not monsters.
They're creepers.
They're creepers.
The aliens, the alien life forms.
Hold on, Brian. They arrived on their planet.
Yeah,
these are them the natives.
These are indigenous life forms.
Indigenous life forms.
And you know
that are CG.
It does slip out a few times that we want to have a white planet because
he announced it very loud.
But that's part of the political critique.
Yeah, and then it's like and then every time they pan across the crew, it's like the white people are in the minority. It's like wow, okay, you just threw everybody off the bus.
Surprising amount of minorities on the ship.
Yeah. Which is cool because you think, every time, and this is one of the problems I have with most sci-fi movies. It's like, why everybody be white?
Romulans aren't white.
They're not.
Right?
But,
Klingons are...
well, I'm not talking Star Wars and Star Trek. I mean, there's like all the other sci-fi movies out there. It's like, why is it got to be an all-white crew going into space? Because they're the
Star
minority.
Wars, not a lot of minorities.
Well, I think
at least for the first three.
It's voiced by a black guy.
For the time and the place, a lot of that sci-fi, I think, was addressing Cold War dynamics. In this, like, United States versus other blocks of power in the world.
Yeah.
Where now we just don't care.
No, now we need new sci-fi.
We do need new sci-fi.
And the sci-fi we've got, I think, oftentimes is very dark because of the pessimism of the time. There's a lot more environmental anxiety, climate anxiety. There's a lot more political anxiety. I think that shows up in our sci-fi.
I'd agree with that.
It does. I mean, it's an easy genre to kind of parallel and reflect.
And ask questions.
And ask a lot of questions.
That was Matt Groening's main goal with Futurama, is to comment on what's happening now.
Yeah.
When they came back the second or third time, they had the iPhone, EYE, where it gets installed right into your skull against your eyeball. the end of the episode was hordes of cultish members marching because that's the commentary on Apple. Is like, oh, you're all just brainwashed. Like, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, and true.
Is that an Apple product over there?
Yeah,
it is.
It's just easier, man. I'm not brainwashed. I don't even care.
I know. As mentioned, robots punching robots. There are a lot of CGI towards the end of the film,
but you know where the action is. You can follow the story really easily. There's not so much going on the screen that you can't follow the action.
And so, do you think that from a military approach, in the fact that these monsters knew how to distract, knew how to, hey, we know you're going to come try and shoot at us, so we're going to have fake stuff out there. From a human perspective, it's like, oh, that's just common. But if they're the only thing alive on the planet, how would they know to do that?
They're not the only thing alive on the planet. It's never established they're the only thing alive on that planet.
Well, that's
the only thing we were aware of. Also, Aaron didn't call it Dan on calling them monsters, which I find very offensive.
Well, they were roly-polies. Hairy roly-polies.
Dan, they're creepers.
They're creepers. With eyes on stalks, as well as inside. I'm like, how many eyeballs do they have? Cute. And they have they look really cute and cuddly. Well, I would have one.
They have their external tundra eyes, and then they got their inside eyes for when close friends and family.
Like 13. Blake 13 got a lot of experiments done on him.
So is there a character that you each most identify with? I know we're set up as a viewer to really root for Mickey. I find him a little disappointing as a protagonist because he's uninspiring. He's kind of dumb. He doesn't seek to improve himself very much.
He has a really bad self-image.
He does.
Just kind of.
But is there?
But he's kind of the one who negotiates a final peace.
He does, and maybe it's because he's not afraid. So many other people are afraid, but Mickey, because he knows he can be reconstituted,
nothing to lose.
He's got nothing to lose, and even without his reconstitution, he kind of doesn't have anything to lose. Otherwise,
just as a relationship with Nasha. Yeah. I'm looking through this cast list. I don't know if there's anyone I really see myself as. Well, I like a few people, but then everyone's so flawed and like a full-fleshed character, which is amazing. I love it.
All right.
What, you don't want to be the mascot?
That guy sucks. I hope a bug thing ate him. I was gonna make a joke and say I see myself as.
What about the nerdy science lady?
I'm not gonna. I mean, I like her. I like her character.
Played by Patsy Farron.
She seems like a delightful person.
She's also not really well developed.
No,
she's
but
very much an archetype.
Her key thing was, I care about science for the sake of of humanity, of pushing everything forward, not just because of a profit. Like the lead guy who's in Mindhunter or whatever, because that guy is fully just a bootlicking heel.
Yeah, he's a turd.
I mean, I don't want to be in this world. It sucks. This world's
it does really suck. You don't want to be the chainsaw guy that
you know what? I want to be the lead creeper. I want to be the mama. That's who I see myself. Now let me sing a song of my people. I just scream in the microphone.
So the Naomi Aki, the female counterpart to our main character, the love interest,
Nasha.
Yes, Nasha, the military-esque does what's right and not what they're told. And her boss does what's right and not what's told.
Yes, yeah.
Once he sees
I like him.
He's like, oh, we need to record all this because they're just gone off the deep end and they're doing stupid stuff.
They're not following the laws.
Correct.
They aren't doing
I would have liked
rules.
more of him before that scene.
Yeah, I'd agree. A little bit.
Because I feel like there might have been scenes
they could have developed that character a little more.
I wonder if there were scenes
to
with
motivate
him
why he was doing what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
even the person that was with his
Everything's
the eyeglasses with him. Like, I think that's the first time we saw that character.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It absolutely was.
We did kind of notice this was a 2-hour and 15-minute movie already as it was.
Right. Why are we calling for more scenes?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Maybe judicial cuts and then substitute in other scenes.
Different scenes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't feel that long because
I would say it's a really enjoyable movie. I'm the only one who's seen it twice.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
and I didn't regret it at all. I actually caught several new things.
I was going to ask how it seems different on the second viewing for you, Brian.
I second that question. As Blake 18, I second that.
I caught several things that were planted that led to payoffs later in the film that I didn't catch the first time. They weren't major things. They were just kind of like, oh, that's a neat little detail.
Lots of little details in this movie.
Yeah, like I'll just give one example. It'll spoil a little bit, but not a lot. During the printing of Mickey 18, somebody tripped over a cord from the hard drive to his 3D printer, and that might explain why his personality was so different.
It was during the personality and memory upload.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't say that. They don't. It's just shown as part of the scene.
Yeah, and you don't miss anything if you didn't catch it the first time.
But it's a classic show don't tell.
Yeah.
They could have had him blathering about, it turns out they got the wire flipped and blah, 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 blah. I want to know, what was that game they were playing where you spin a coin, catch it and throw it?
It was kind of like football. It was middle school.
Yeah, it's like a middle school game.
But like scarier because it's metal.
But also scary because these are scientists and they're so engaged.
Well, they're also insane cult members.
Yeah. They're so engaged in this middle school game. It's a little frightening at how incompetent so many people on this
There's
ship
no
are.
oversight on this entire ship, and it was just bumming me out.
So one of the prefaces is that this is not the only ship that went to colonize a planet. There were many, many other ships that left.
I thought this was the one ship.
No, this was the last ship
before the law changed
for that season.
For that season,
I missed that entirely.
Yeah, no. So there were other ships, and that was actually brought up. It's like, well, you weren't on that ship, so you must be all right. You're here.
Yeah,
and it's with this ghetto,
But to get on ships, you have to have a skill or some reason to pay your way.
Right.
Yep.
And it seemed like the people signing up for this ship were kind of the last
of them,
the dregs.
So
this was not the ship everyone really wanted to be on.
This was not a first round draft. This was like the 45th round draft.
This was the ship that all the MAGAs wanted to get on.
Yeah.
So why were they going to this terrible planet? Like they have
because all the other ones were already taken.
Why did the leader go to this terrible planet?
Because he wanted to have his own planet to consolidate his own
because
power.
the snow made it all white.
Oh,
well,
and these are both correct answers.
Nobody else wanted that planet.
Correct.
No one else wants America, and that's why we have who we have. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that tracks. I'm gonna get in their beer.
Speaking of beer,
there was an opportunity for us earlier this evening to stop by one of, I guess you would say, one of our more common tap rooms and beer stores called
a neighborhood favorite.
Neighborhood favorite, but we're not in the neighborhood, but we're making it a neighborhood favorite.
It's a neighborhood.
It's worth driving to a 10 minutes.
10 minutes to get to, yes. So Beer Mongers out in Southeast on 11th, and
this is Portland for our listeners that are
Portland,
not
Oregon, Southeast. Yeah. So Beer Mongers has been around. They're open 24/7, but they're open every day of the year.
Lord.
No, they're literally, that's the whole thing is like
365 days a year.
They have a sign inside that says how many days in a row they've been open, and it's like thousands of days in a row. They've been open. So they moved. So there was a gap there when they moved. They weren't open every day during their move, but since they moved, it's now been extended to that.
Shenanigans. They weren't open when they were moving.
Well, they moved about a block. They had to. They lost their lease and everything.
So I'm real curious, just super quick.
Counting.
If you if you owned a place and you wanted to stay open while moving, what would you do?
You would do what you got to do to keep it open
with insane science,
with science and stuff.
But you wouldn't necessarily keep count of all of the days if that's the thing you promote your business with.
You can, and you don't have to, but you could.
Well, I mean, they do, and I'd say like you would have to have both locations open for a while, and that'd be really expensive because you have some fridge and staff at one, and some.
They started moving before they lost their lease.
Okay.
So that's what they did.
Okay.
The new place was open, but the fridges weren't full. They were still moving product, but they moved the taps.
So would you count double days since both places are open? Each place has their own day.
You could do.
Nah, that's one day. It's still no. Thursday is Thursday. You don't
Your
get
day
to
is
count.
different from my day.
You get it, but it's both Thursday. Both of us have a Thursday.
Friday to me.
So it's cloned Thursdays.
It's the same day twice because you could go to both places at the same time, or maybe one was only open and one wasn't.
Aaron.
It's like, I don't know.
Okay, so they have a scorecard behind their bar of how many days in a row they've been open, and it's a cool thing.
And we got 2 great beers to have with this episode.
3. What are you talking about?
We had 3. That's right.
What was the first
really
one?
did
I've
have
had
three.
It was a Mexican lager.
One too
Or
many.
Mexican style lager.
Well, I don't know about that, but
No, not yet.
so the point was
I haven't touched anyone.
The nice
it's Cinco de Mayo is close at hand, and we decided, hey, we're gonna go get some churros and some really interesting food over at a food cart pod not far from
Beer mongers.
Beer Mongers.
I tried to send Blake 30, but he got hit by traffic, so he couldn't make it.
He couldn't make it. Yeah. We're sitting here going, okay, let's figure out some stuff. So the first thing we did was first, obviously, because clone beers are very common. So when you have a Mexican style lager, one might assume that you're taking a stab at making a beer that's common from Mexico, be it Corona or Dos Equis or there's probably 5 or 6 other ones you can find on the store shelf.
I was going to say, yeah, that's corn based.
So a lot of corn beers, and this beer does have corn in it. So we're going to talk about so we had 3 beers. The first one we're going to talk about is from Recluse Brewing, which is out of Washougal, Washington. They have been around now for, I think, just a little over a year. Came on the scene making really amazing good stuff. They started canning and distributing widely. You can find them at most nicer bottle shops and can shops, maybe at New Seasons or Whole Foods, but I don't think you're going to find them at Freddy's because they're not quite that big yet, but they're around. Check them out. You can find them on draft at some more interesting bars, but I want to say, so this is the Curato de Copas. I don't know.
Cuatro de Copas.
Someone speaks Spanish better than I do.
4
Ryan?
of Copas. I don't know what Copas is.
I don't know, but it's crispy, meditative, and corn. That's the description I have, but it's a 4.6% beer in there. There's some marketing copy on there. Aaron, would you please read that?
We are beer people. At RBW, we are intensely focused on perfecting every brew, which is why you might not see us out and about on the... oh, geez. All right, I messed this up.
Let's start over. Aaron, read that marketing copy.
We are beer people. At RBW, we are intensely focused on perfecting every brew, which is why you might not see us out and about that much. You'll find us in a factory a little off the beaten path. We aren't hiding. We're just busy pouring our heart into our craft and making something delightful for you. Enjoy with a friend. Savor by yourself.
I have what Cuatro de Copas means.
All right.
It's a tarot card, the 4 of Cups.
4 of Cups. There you go.
Oh,
Nice.
If it's upright, it means meditation, contemplation, apathy, and reevaluation. If it's reversed, it means retreat, withdrawal, checking in for alignment.
this is like 17 versus 18.
Yeah, it is, kind of. Because it's...
Dan, throw in a glass shattering sound.
I don't know.
No.
Yeah, we'll find something.
Do your producer's job. Throw in some sound effects.
like a brain exploding.
I don't know.
Yes.
All right. So thoughts on this? This is a really light.
I loved it.
Corn-based lager.
It's not fair. It's not fair because I love every lager I have, and if it's corn-based, I'm doubly down for it. Yeah. Blake's
no
a big
worries.
fan.
I enjoyed this a lot as well.
It was good. Brian, this is not hoppy. This is the antithesis of hoppiness.
Yeah, I liked it, but having immigrated from Southern California,
Uh-oh.
I like Corona and Dos
Sweet.
Equis
Sweet.
on a sunny day.
It was sunny and hot out when we went.
And this actually had a little bit too much body for me. It was not real
does.
thin.
It is not
So
thin.
it was not a good clone for kind of a Mexican lager.
So it was the 18 and not the 17.
It was the 18, not the 17. But
You
it was fine.
digressed.
I enjoyed drinking it. It just wasn't what I expected.
All right.
That's an excellent point. I didn't even think about that. I've gotten so used to craft beers that when I have a very thin, light lager, I do think I'm basically drinking water.
You are. I mean, it has that profile. That's the intent.
But for me, a Corona really shines when you shove the lime slice in there.
Correct. And why do they put lime in a Corona?
I don't know because
To keep the flies.
That's what makes
out.
it
The flies out.
That's what makes it a
so
Corona.
sweet. It's so sweet and so high in residual sugar. The flies go right to it. And a lime, the acidity in the lime keeps them away.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's why they put a lime on it.
I thought the lime was delicious, but I
mean,
like
it is
sour
It is
beer,
tasty,
so-
but they figured out, hey, this is a way to keep the bugs out.
I mean, it's got a quintessential kind of start of summer, Southern Cali, Northern Mexico feel.
if you're part of the Fast and Furious universe as well, yes,
Yes.
they love Coronas.
Yes, they do.
So the tasting notes here say crispy, corn, and meditative.
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever had a beer describe itself as meditative.
Well, I mean, he read what the four cups is. It's like it's meditative on the upside, which is the positive.
The he being Blake 20, Blake 19 got retired for reasons.
But like the meditative, if somebody said, "Oh, try this lager, it's very meditative," I would have no idea.
And I don't either. And that means
okay. I would think it was something you would sip on your own when you're kind of down and pensive.
You need to drink something. And
see,
it's soft,
I would take it as you're on a porch. The sun's shining on you. The bottle's sweat. If it's a bottle, it's sweating a little bit. So you're just taking careful sips and just enjoying the moment.
Blake's enjoying with a friend, and Brian is savoring by himself, as it says on the can.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Did this beer live up to its copy? That's my question.
Good question.
Well, I did not see the brewmasters out and about, so yes.
Yes, it did, because they were out there making beer, and beer mongers had it in their coolers, and it was good. And they had a couple of other ones too, but this is the one we picked because I was like, hey, they had 3 or 4 different Mexican lagers in cans available, and I was like, Recluse does good job.
You know what?
Not light. I knew it was going to be more full body because typically all of their lagers are that way. I haven't had anything super thin from them. And we talked about maybe getting a clone of something. We talked about while we were out beer mongers where Blake is going like, I don't know what the hell you're talking
gesturing
about.
At me, looking directly in my eyeballs, into my soul. I'm like, what is happening?
So we talked about getting pub beer from 10 Barrel.
Oh, Blake's favorite?
Which is a clone of Busch Light.
It is a standard in the old Blake household. Casa de Hunt.
And I was explaining to the guys, I was like, they made an effort to find a beer that they kind of made a bet amongst themselves, the brewers, to make up a beer that was like they could mass produce and blah, 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 blah. And it was the second beer that we tried, we got because of the can art.
Sorry, I feel terrible about cutting you off.
Yeah.
Do we think this matched a movie? I want to say yes for the first third.
Yeah.
If we drank this later, it would not have worked.
No,
as well.
it was a very casual, light beer. So if you're going to watch this movie, seek something light for the first part.
While you're being introduced to the world that this is set in,
because it develops its own identity and it has its own universe, and a lot of it's not explained, which is nice because you want the sci-fi nerds to figure it out on their own.
But Dan, enough of your extrapolating. What's up with the second beer?
All right, so the second beer is from Ruse Brewing, and it's called Star Sender's Hazy IPA. So this is sometimes the stars send us a message. This time around, it's a hazy Citra and Strata. Prepare yourself for notes of juicy berries and I can't even read that.
Delightful dank peach.
Delightful dank peach. I can't read that word.
Oh
artist. My God.
Look upward. Drink thoughtfully.
Yes. So it's like we have made the effort to pour beers into bottles from cans or bottles into glasses. Into glasses.
No, I poured mine from a can into a bottle. Dan was very mad at me.
Oh my gosh! Here we go.
You got so much of it on the carpet.
Well, it's not my carpet. It's fine.
So it's tasting notes here: juicy, dank, and astronomical. If somebody
astronomical,
hey, I have this hazy IPA.
Is that a note in beer judging?
I have no idea what astronomical.
It's on the can. I would have no idea. Aaron, try this astronomical beer. I'd be like, what?
Fortunately, Blake 25 is an expert beer judge, and it is a note in the future beer tastings.
Yeah, so this is a 7.3% hazy IPA, and it actually, from the standpoint, it had a nice dry amount.
7.2% hazy IPA.
All right, it had a nice dry amount on the tongue. It presented not super dank or juicy. It had a good mix of the pine dankness along with those juicy, like almost. I said it was more grapefruity than anything. Not juicy berry. I mean, the berries are there, but they're really light.
I just got your own citrus, like it.
Right.
The dryness,
strong citrus.
I didn't really notice it while drinking it, but now you mention it, it was really just you taste it and it's gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which feels apropos for the film.
Yeah. And it lingered very, very shallow and then dropped off. And I appreciate that is a style. That's how the hazy is supposed to be done. So this, I think, was very effective in how making a beer to the style. And the can art,
you're supposed to have a Mickey and then they're gone.
Yeah. So the can art was reflective of sort of traveling into space. So it's like, the 2010 Odyssey with the lights going around. And yeah. So I appreciate it. We picked it on that alone. I had no experience with this beer prior to us tasting it.
Right.
Ruse does a good job on all their IPAs. So I was assuming that, hey, they're going to dial it in, which they did with this one. And it's just a light hazy. It's not full body, big in your face. And I think at 7.3%, it handles the alcohol amount really well. It's not up in your face. So for Brian, the non-hop head at the table, thoughts on how it handled it?
All right. Being honest.
Yeah.
Be honest.
I was so into the film at this point.
You ignored it?
That I ignored the beer. I just enjoyed sipping it.
Yeah.
So what that tells me is it wasn't so hop heavy that it distracted me from the film.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you kind of the notes I tasted because I wasn't paying attention.
So pine and citrus is really, I mean, all the reviews that I read, there's like, oh, it's going to focus on that. It just dries out and it's a little citrus note on the back. The pine hits on the front mid palate and then just poof. And
yeah, it definitely didn't stay with me.
Which is what I love about a correctly done hazy. It's just you get the flavor and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Like, cool. I don't want
a short tail.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't love having a beer hang out on my tongue for a while.
Or a tail that gets cut off and turned into a sauce.
Spoilers, Dan.
Well, it wasn't until you said that, Aaron. Now, Brian chastised me.
No.
Damn it.
Worm.
So there's some, all right, so we all have a lot of sympathy for the poor native creatures of this poor planet that's an ice planet. And then there's a spring at the end and there's like stuff growing. I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. But these animals like lived in rock. I'm just going to straight up say that. I'm like, okay, so they have the ability to like survive in rock. And all I know is there's the little bugs that
the
roly-polies, and then there's a little roly-poly thingy that is the microscopic. I can't remember what they're
tardigrades.
Tardigrades.
Who can survive? Water bears. Who can survive? And these things look like that a little bit.
Yeah,
so it's like they can survive in anything.
I'm going to blow your mind. That rock that was taken,
it was porous.
Maybe that was an egg.
Oh, maybe it was an egg.
Oh, shoot. I love that.
Because there were two holes and two things came out, right?
There were several holes.
Just like an egg.
Just like an egg.
Sometimes you get an egg that's got a couple yolks in it. All right, let's talk about beer.
But all right. I love when I get a double yolk egg.
There's probably tardigrades in beer.
There's tardigrades on your face.
Right I mean, they're everywhere. You know.
Well, we got the Block 15 beer because it had tardigrades in it.
Correct. So,
Dan, you have to make that up around
Super Nebula.
We brought in something based on the label, but I know that Block 15, any of the barrel aged stuff is phenomenal.
A bourbon barrel matured imperial stout with cocoa nibs. Sorry.
Yep. So it's a bourbon.
All right, Aaron 2, come on in.
Coffee. So 11% ABV. So Block 15 out of Corvallis. Block 15's been around for a while. They make a lot of barrel aged stuff. So there's marketing copy.
I'm a big fan of most of their stuff.
Each year we mature a Super Nebula, an imperial version of our Nebula Stout, in unique bourbon barrels, followed by conditioning with cocoa nibs, selected to complement that year's blend. Episode 12. 2021 Super Nebula was matured in Basil Hayden bourbon barrels and then conditioned on direct trade wild harvest heirloom cocoa nibs from Bolivia.
Wow.
It's supposed to be the 12th iteration that they did. Okay.
Yeah. And it's not this year's. It's a few years old. It's sat on the nibs.
2021.
Yeah. So it's been around for 3 years now, or 4 years now, give or take. It aged in a barrel and then they bottled it. So it's been bottled. It aged a while before it got bottled. They bottled it and then it's sat on the shelf waiting for us to buy it and try it. So as with most barrel aged and or anything over 10% stouts that have adjuncts and or been added other alcohol, it's going to be a little alcohol forward. You're drinking a big beer. The nice thing about this one is it's not a burn. You know it's there. You did it on the tongue a little bit, but then it drops off a little bit. And you got that cocoa. And that's what I really like. It's not coffee bitter. It's cocoa bitter.
It is. It's dark chocolate.
It's a dark chocolate bitter, which I really like. I don't know if they roast the cocoa before they sit it and what part of the process they add it, if that's after the barrel or just before they bottle it or what, but it tastes very
chocolatey.
The chocolatey, and it tastes like it's been sitting on those nibs for a while. So
I
it's
think
very in depth and ingrained into the flavor of the beer and the body of the beer.
They must roast those cocoa nibs a little bit to I think just activate some of the essential oils and get some of that cocoa flavor out of them, because they did a really good job of extracting just the right level of that cocoa influence, because you notice it's there. It doesn't overpower everything else that's in the beer. You know you're drinking an imperial stout. It does not taste like burnt. It does not taste like coffee. It doesn't taste like scorched anything. It tastes a little bit like you had a really nice chocolate bar right before you drink the beer.
Yeah.
For me, I also taste a little black licorice. I don't know if that's a flavor in beer judging, but I taste a little bit of that.
Anise,
also.
it's a spice. So anytime that you barrel age something, or you're throwing a an adjunct star anise, so you're just like, the idea of going into the nebula, as the bottle has a label where it's a keg that's in space and it's traveling, and it looks like it's going towards a nebula because it's all cloudy around it. But I digress.
I think it matched the end of the film well.
Yeah, I think
it was a very cold. This doesn't give anything away. Very cold scenes. A nice hearty, internally warming stout is perfect for that kind of scene.
Yeah. Thoughts on, beyond just how we handled it in flavor and matching up with the movie? I think from an execution standpoint, the beer does exactly what it says it is. It's not misleading. It's a big beer. I appreciate the fact that
I wouldn't want to drink a whole one of these.
We got a bottle
over the last third of this film.
Yeah, no,
that would be too much.
We were doing taste. We were doing like literally 1.5, 2 ounce.
Selecting what you want to taste from,
because it is a big beer. You should definitely let it warm up to tepid. If it's in a cooler or a freezer or anything, please just set it out for 15 minutes before you open it, and then or open it and let it sit for 15 minutes. Yes, it's going to gas off, but the point of imperial,
like us,
the point of these beers is it shouldn't be carbonated. I mean, it's barrel aged, so it's going to be flat. They're not going to CO2. They're not going to carbonate it before they bottle it. They're going to let it be straight from it, and whatever natural carbonation occurs in the beer, whatever yeast is left over, whatever other nutrients are there, that's what is there. And so you're not going to get a big head. It's going to be a little flat and smooth, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Then it's like taking a shot of whiskey, which is they did the barrels.
Bourbon.
Or eating whatever that disgusting slop was on that ship.
I know. The gray goo that they push out.
They had measured to a point of, you're having more calories than you're allowed to have. Like
7 more calories than you're allowed to have.
Calories.
Set that guy on fire.
I don't know. I mean, so darker beer that has higher sugar content like this is going to have a lot more calories than that lighter Mexican lager most of the time, but not always.
Most of the time.
If you're using adjuncts like corn and rice and stuff on your lagers, you're going to add a lot of sugars or residual sugar. And that's why, it tastes sweet. Well, that's because the yeast didn't have a chance to eat it all.
Well, your boy's got a sweet tooth. That's why I love them.
Yeah. And the thing is, with lighter lagers like that, Mexican style, it's below 5%. So you want it. It's okay to have residual sugar and be sweet because you're stopping the fermentation process early in order to stop it and not have it be higher alcohol. That's the whole point. So you test it as you go. I don't know, Aaron. Everyone's shaking their head. I got that.
What comes to mind is, do you think the final beer, the third beer, the stout, went with the film?
I think it did. I think it went really well because there was a good ending. It was positive. The beer kind of helped coalesce the evening, and it was in space and a happy ending instead of a sad ending, because most Hollywood films are happy endings and not sad endings. A vast majority of
them. That's what producers demand.
Sci-fi stuff.
It was a cold winter scene that was beginning to warm up and
go to spring,
move into springtime. And this is a beer for that same transition of moving from a coldness of winter into a warmer, brighter spring.
Yes.
Or if you're in Portland, one of the several 7 to 10 fall springs. Yes.
All right. Great movie. Check it out if you can catch it on a streaming service.
Absolutely watch it. Yeah.
It is definitely worth watching, even if it does drop the ball on some of the moral and ethical stuff that it brings up.
It's entertaining as an entertainment film, but it also gives you something to chew on mentally.
Agreed. It's fun to watch. You think about what's going on in it, and
And that's not far away. I mean, we're going to be in space in the next 20 years, right? We're going to colonize the moon.
Well, Amazon burned a bunch of money to send a bunch of bimbos to space because they would rather do that than give people actual funds. But whatever.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
Sorry,
that's not the best terminology for them.
It's Katy Perry sucks. It's fine. You can cut all that out.
Katy Perry is an artist
idiot
who has worked hard to transform.
Who's working with
herself.
a person who refuses to pay his people a living wage.
Okay, well, I'll criticize Jeff Bezos all day, but Katy Perry has succeeded in an industry that tends to commodify women.
I'm just going to bite my tongue because I have so much more to say, but it's not. This is not
the platform.
Sorry, I just got really worked up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys.
We'll fight about Katy Perry on our next episode of
movie and a music star.
I'm sorry, Aaron. I love you, buddy.
So we're laughing about this great film. I think 4 thumbs up and maybe 6 thumbs up or 8 thumbs up or
I mean both my thumbs
are 8.
We're thumbing
highly
up.
Recommend. More proof that Robert Pattinson knows exactly what he's doing when he has a good script and a good director.
And he's not sparkly.
And we get Steven Yeun. We get just a whole cavalcade of wonderful actors.
Mark Ruffalo's great.
He's phenomenal.
He's a bad. He's a
Tony
good bad
Collette,
guy.
whose name I remember now, is so good.
He's a good bad guy. So
he's a very bad guy.
All right,
interspersed with comedic light touches at just the right times, just the right amounts.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
All right. So good action, good writing, good acting, good storyline, interesting film.
Have a wide selection of beers.
So what age appropriate?
12.
Maybe teenager-ish. I mean, because there's
hold on. Actually, no. There's nudity in here. There is.
Well,
there is some.
Sort of. He's squeezing the.
You see some butt.
You don't see the actual bits,
but there is adult
no
situations.
There is adult situations.
I think 12 and up. I think 12
fetus.
And up.
I'm saying fetus.
So fetus.
I don't know, 16.
All right. I know we are moving to beer, but if you want to watch it with your kids, if they're teenagers or preteen, you should be fine.
If you watch Parasite with them, you can watch this.
Yeah, definitely. Because
what teenager wants to watch Parasite?
Weird teenagers, bro.
There are some out there. There are some out there.
Cinephiles come in all ages and sizes.
Yeah,
they do.
Thank you for hanging out and everything.
Oh, you're welcome, Dan.
As always, the opinions expressed during the taping of this recording are those of the hosts, and
and Dan
and me, because as a host or co-host, it's out there. We're doing our thing. Thanks for hanging out and listening.
Hey guys, make sure if you don't hydrate, hold on. Hi, Blake 42 here. If you don't hydrate, you'll dihydrate.
Yes, as he did many times.
That's what happened to the previous 41 Blakes.
Dear listener, thank you for joining us. This is Aaron. I just want to say, you're not expendable. We need all the audience members we can get, but also your life is important and you matter. You're a human.
Are you?
If you're listening to our show, they are.
I hope so.
I mean, I guess they could put it on for their dog.
I've been putting a speaker out for our podcast to get crows interested.
Okay, if you're a living sentient being, you're important and valuable. So
also playing it for rocks.
You're not expendable, Blake.
Not helpful.
This is Blake 42 saying later.
Hey everybody, this is Brian. Thanks for hanging out and find some friends to watch this film with.
Yeah, it's a good film. All right, take care, everybody. Bye bye.